My next patron question is from Theodore, who would like to know what would have happened if Time Warner never purchased Turner Entertainment. When I was thinking about this question and this alternate universe, it really hit me how much of an impact Ted Turner selling his company to Time Warner had on the entertainment industry at large. Obviously, the big thing is Warner would not have CNN, Cartoon Network, Turner Classic Movies, the pre-1986 MGM library, and the pre-1950 Warner Brothers library under their ownership, and maybe we would not be seeing Paramount go into desperate lengths to buy the company today. However, there are other interesting changes beyond this. For example, before they were acquired by Warner, Turner Entertainment had a film division appropriately named Turner Pictures, and they were revving up to have a big slate, with a lot of films set to be distributed by New Line Cinema, which Turner also owned. This included diving headfirst into animation. Catstone Dance had recently completed production when the Warner Brothers sale happened, but the studio had little enthusiasm for the film and it flopped. If Turner never sold his company to Warner, that movie would have been released under New Line, and I think it would have done better under them. Maybe not a huge hit, but certainly much better than how WB handled the movie. When I was doing research on my video about former New Line president Michael DeLuca, I found out he's apparently really into animation. I feel he would have definitely given Catstone Dance a bigger push. Meanwhile, Brad Bird was working on his animated film Ray Gun at Turner when the merger happened, after which Warner brought him on board the Iron Giant. But in this alternate universe, maybe he gets to make Ray Gun back in the 90s, and that gets released around 98 or 99. Although that also means maybe the Iron Giant does not get made, or someone else ends up directing the movie. And does Bird still go on to make The Incredibles at Pixar? Turner Pictures had other films in the works, which did not survive the move to Warner Brothers, although few did, most notably You've Got Mail. Interesting enough, a sequel WB's releasing later this year might not happen in this timeline. That's because Practical Magic started life under Turner before it became a Warner Brothers production. That movie might have wound up very differently or gotten a different fan base, or maybe it would have been a much bigger hit on its original release and a sequel would have been made a lot sooner. Then you have Castle Rock, another company owned by Turner, which ended up under Warner. A lot of the movies they produced following the merger might have been released under New Line and could have seen different results. Would Green Mile still have gotten a Best Picture nomination? Would Miss Congeniality still become a hit? How would Kangaroo Jack have fared? What impact would The Adventures of Pluto Nash flopping have on Turner Entertainment? Would Pluto Nash even be made in this other timeline? A franchise that would have gone very differently had Turner not sold his company to Warner was Scooby-Doo. For example, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island came from Warner Brothers wanting to produce a direct-to-video movie featuring the character. While some Hanna-Barbera veterans were heavily involved in the movie, it also had the involvement of Warner Brothers Animation, including President Gene McCurdy, who served as executive producer. It's likely that specific movie would not have happened had WB not become the new owner of the Hanna-Barbera characters, and same goes for the other direct-to-video movies and future Scooby-Doo television series. The live-action Scooby-Doo movie did start development under Turner back in the mid-90s. If Warner Brothers had not made the movie, it's possible that Roger Gosnell would not have directed it, or James Gunn been hired to write the screenplay. It might have also been made a few years earlier and had a different cast, which means Matthew Lillard does not get cast as Shaggy, and someone else becomes the new official voice of the character down the road. Turner was also developing live-action movies based on the Jetsons and Jonny Quest, which would have either remained in development hell, or maybe they would have reached screens. I've just mentioned how this affects productions developed under Turner Entertainment companies, but Time Warner not buying Turner would have had an even bigger impact beyond them. Amy Pascal was running Turner Pictures at the time, but with the writing on the wall with the Warner merger, she left and went over to Columbia Pictures. But if Turner had remained independent, she would have stayed there, and it's highly likely one of the biggest comic book superheroes would have had a different life on the big screen. That's because Amy Pascal was the biggest champion of hiring Sam Raimi to direct Spider-Man, having suggested him for the job. If Pascal was not at Sony, they would have possibly picked someone else to make the movie, and since Tobey Maguire was Raimi's #1 pick to play Peter Parker, audiences would have been watching someone else getting bit by a radioactive spider. Spider-Man and the subsequent sequels would have been very different, and same goes for any of the other Spider-Man movies. The Spider-Verse films might not have come into existence either, since Pascal was the person who suggested the idea of doing an animated Spider-Man movie to Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Oh, and their careers would have been different, since she was the one who hired them to make Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Now let's say years later, Turner would eventually decide to sell his company. If not Warner, then who? Comcast maybe? Or Sony? Probably not Fox, seeing as Ted Turner and Rupert Murdoch had a long-standing professional rivalry. Whoever ended up owning Turner Entertainment, that would have affected things even more. I've mentioned this before in a previous What If video, but it shows the massive ripple effects that one corporate decision can have on not just the companies being sold or merged with, but others as well. Thank you for your question, Theodore.